Now, when you hear Jet Set Radio, what's the first thing you think about? Most likely the music. The music of Jet Set Radio is generational. Even those who have not played either the original game or future have most likely heard the soundtrack of these games in their time playing other games. With legendary composer Hideki Naganuma at the helm for this game's soundtrack, as well as various other composers and indie music artists, Jet Set Radio's soundtrack will continue to be remembered for eternity. Which is why it was no surprise when it was announced that Hideki would take part in doing some music for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which was a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio. It would make sense for people to expect the game to match the same vibes. Well, it certainly did in its own unique way. It does make me wonder though, which soundtrack did a better job in bringing out the vibe of their game? I thought it'd be a little boring trying to decide which soundtrack is better because music taste is subjective. So, I figured it'd be more interesting to judge the games on how well they implement their soundtracks into the gameplay and story. Now, I'm going to specifically be comparing Jet Set Radio Future with Bomb Rush Cyberpunk because they are the most similar in structure. So, let's get down to it. The first impression is very important because it is what makes people want to stay. Sonic Adventure's opening movie is fantastic, building up to the destruction of Station Square, what's causing it, running through with Sonic and showing off all the characters in the game with Open Your Heart blaring in the background, or when you boot up Crazy Taxi and you get the announcer screaming the title of the game, followed by the offsprings, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm sorry, I had to do that for copyright reasons. You get the idea of what you're about to get into, and it looks exciting. When you boot up Jet Set Radio Future and you get past all the logos, what's the first thing you hear? Peak fiction. I don't think I need to express how amazing the concept of love is. It is easily the most recognizable song of Jet Set Radio. When you hear the word understand repeated, you can't help but think of Jet Set Radio Future. With the hard hitting and exhilarating sounds of the song with a demo of the GG skating around in sync with the music, you immediately get the vibes of the game. When you start Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, you don't really get a big bombastic intro like Future. You get the title screen, and then once you get into the main menu, you get this really laid back techno song. I mean, it is fine as a very minimalistic main menu song, but it doesn't really get you pumped yet for the game you're about to play. What did do a better job at giving a first impression is the tutorial level. Plume is a very eerie sounding, hard bass boosting, eccentric song that matches well with the prison break that's happening. It leaves a sense of mystery like, what's going on? Why is this prison break happening? Why is this random guy helping me escape? Plume is the calm before the storm, the prelude before we jump into the conflict of BRC's story. This is a great first impression. It was just done through the gameplay instead of the opening like with Future. Although they did have the perfect song to make a cool opening with. The People would have been a great opening song with some gameplay footage behind it. I even made a theoretical opening for BRC on what it could look like with an opening. You should check out that video after this video. Speaking of the gameplay, both Jet Set Radio Future and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk have their songs together as medleys. Each chapter of both games have their own dedicated medleys, but their uses have different intentions. For Jet Set Radio Future, the medleys they chose for each chapter is loosely based on the areas you'll be exploring for each chapter and the current situation at hand. For example, in Chapter 2, that's when you first enter Rokaku Dai Heist, so there's a dedicated medley for songs that would fit an area like that. Oldies but Happies, Birthday Cake, Like This Like That, and Sweet Soul Brother. Very old-timey sounding songs, and then, during the Death Ball chapter, you have the techno and fast tempo songs to match the vibe of the noise tanks and the fact that you're playing a very competitive game with your life on the line. It's not a really focused intention, but I can see what they were trying to do with their medleys. The only area that has a dedicated medley that doesn't change at all is the sewers. In Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, the medleys, or the mixtapes in this case, are based on the rival gangs you're facing in each chapter, so the songs are chosen specifically to match the vibe of the type of songs the rival gang would bump along with their type of dance. The Franks has the Sunshine Poppin' mixtape, Eclipse has the House Cat mixtape, .exe has the Breaking Machine mixtape, Devil Theory has the Beast Mode Hip Hop mixtape, and Futurism has Locking Up the Funk. Songs specifically chosen to match the vibe of the rival members is a really good idea, and it feels better focused on its intentions, so I definitely gotta give that up to BRC. BRC also has dedicated songs for certain parts of the game. Their main song to use when it comes to any boss fights featuring the police is Spectres. For the bigger boss fights like with the giant mech in Chapter 3 and the DJ Cyber fight, it has Chuckin' Up. The Dream Sequences has Scrape the Way Out and Last Hurrah as their dedicated songs, and 2 Days Off is the song of the old heads. I like that these themes are specific to certain situations and characters. Jet Set Radio Future does have something like this. Ill Victory Beat is the dedicated song for DJ Professor K, and Grace and Glory is the dedicated song for Goji. However, there's no dedicated song for when you're facing the Rokaku Police or the Golden Rhinos. Despite this, there is something Jet Set Radio Future does better, and it's how many songs they have in their medleys. For each chapter, Jet Set Radio Future comes with 2 medleys with 3 to 4 songs each. Depending on how long you stay in these stages, you are going to hear up to 6 to 8 songs per medley before it loops. It also changes to the other medley to play first when you go to a different region. Think of it as like a side A and side B type of deal. Rush Cyberfunk's mixtape has 5 songs for each medley, except for the last one, which only has 4 songs. This is all one big medley instead of Future separating the songs into 2 sets. Once the set ends, it will loop back to the first song of the mixtape. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but one thing Future does really well with their medleys is with the transitions from song to song, which is actually the most underrated aspect of Future's music during gameplay. Like, have you really sat down and think about how good the transitions are in this game and how they implement songs into each other before they change? Like, listen to this.
Lace your bets. Do you love me too? Oh yeah. Love is very sweet. Very sweet. Very sweet. Isn't it? Like this, like that. Expanding like the internet. Come and place your bets. 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 Come and.
Rush Cyberfunk has transitions, but they're definitely not as cool as the ones in Future. Rare times you'll get songs implemented into other songs before they transition, and the few times you do, sometimes they don't sound smooth. One mixtape that seems to get the assignment right is the House Cats mixtape. This mixtape easily has the best transitions, with this particular one with Hair Done, Nail Done to How About This. Like, this one is beautiful. They do kind of get lazy with it as well with the Locking Up the Funk mixtape. That mixtape only has 2 songs that haven't been heard yet from that point of the game, and 2 songs that are from previous mixtapes. It is a very lackluster medley, and this is the perfect time for me to talk about how Jack the Funk was ruined because of this. Jack the Funk on its own is a fine song, nothing really special, but it's alright. However, over time, this song sort of became a meme in the BRC community. So, in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, once you unlock more songs throughout the game, you're able to choose whatever song you want to listen to from your phone. The songs also carry over when you're going to other levels so that it can continue to play if it's not finished. However, this wasn't always the case. In 1.0, when the game first initially released, when you picked a song and went to another level, it would reset to the start of the current mixtape for that chapter. And what's the first song you'll hear if you boot up the game while trying to 100% it? Jack the Funk. You couldn't escape it. You could be wanting to jam the light switch while exploring, and then the moment you decide to move on to another level, you get jump scared by Jack the Funk again. When the modern community was just getting started, what's the song they had to listen to just to be sure that their mods were working properly? If you guess Jack the Funk, then congratulations, you are smart and deserve head pats. This actually tanked Jack the Funk's reputation pretty badly, and now with the mods that we have now, we don't have to hear that song ever again, for the better. Now, Jet Set Radio Future isn't exactly exempt from this certain criticism either. While the medleys have more songs, with how much more exploration there is in this game, you are going to be hearing the same medleys again and again. There is no option to play different songs outside the garage, and while you're in the garage, you can change songs. There isn't a way to make it a shuffle. You're stuck with that one selected song. This is very annoying for when you're doing test runs, especially the jet techs with their long time limits. Yeah, you can always go back and change the songs if you want to change to something different, but it is a little annoying and it always takes like an extra 10 seconds to do. Now, to the average person, listening to both of these soundtracks back to back would make it sound like they're the same. Well, not really. I mean, they do share the one same composer, but the vibes are drastically different from each other. Jet Set Radio Future carries this sense of edge to it that is in line with the early 2000s sound. There is an abundance of rock music and really vulgar tracks with suggestive themes in there, which Bomb Rush Cyberfunk doesn't have. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is filled with more of a modern sound, no rock music, more emphasis on techno, dubstep, dancehouse, and funk. Both games have their distinct sounds from their respective eras. In terms of which one I prefer personally, I think I'm gonna have to give it to Future. I know, potential bias, and it could also be an age thing. I just generally think Future's OST pops more, and there's a bit more variety in the sound. I also just like the edginess of it. Even the worst songs of Future are still pretty memorable. With BRC, it does have a lot of good songs. I would say like Light Switch and I Wanna Know are like de facto Bomb Rush Cyberfunk songs that define the game. However, there are more songs in BRC that I just don't really care for or don't like at all. I'm looking at you, Big City Life. It could also feel samey in some cases, which makes a song like Condensed Milk so special to me, because there is no song in Jet Set Radio Future that sounds like this, and it's the most tonally different song in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk that no other song matches it. That is why Condensed Milk will always be a top tier song, and I will not be listening to any arguments on the matter. In any case, the point I'm trying to make is that both soundtracks have really strong aspects in certain areas when compared against each other. Even with their differences, both soundtracks are overall bangers and will always be remembered in the public subconsciousness. These are big examples of how important a soundtrack can really make a game. If the soundtracks ain't good or memorable, the vibes are off, which these games don't have to worry about. So I can only hope for that Jet Set Radio 3 will be able to follow in the footsteps of its predecessors and provide an amazing soundtrack for the game. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.